Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. In this video I will talk about my personal journey from being a full-time programmer in London, leaving that high-paying job and coming to this lifestyle of pseudo-minimalistic digital nomad, as sort of a hybrid if you will. Why did I choose this lifestyle and the direction of this channel, where it is going after 10 months of working on it, and where's my head at this point. This is a bit of a chit chat. There may not be anything entertaining or useful, so please feel free to skip over this video, watch something else that may be useful. I also want to talk about what I have learned in the last 10 months of running this YouTube channel. If you're new here, I'm from India. I've moved to the UK. I'm a British citizen now, but I moved to the UK in 2007. I got a job there. After 2 years of working in Bristol, moved to London. Been living there ever since 2009 until 2012. In 2012, 2013-ish, I decided to not to have a home base, a permanent base at least, and to choose this lifestyle. I will talk about the motivations behind it. So as I said, by trade I'm a software developer. So why did I leave this high-paying job? To answer that, I need to address some of my personal struggles or problems. Struggles make it sound more dramatic. The primary reason is loneliness. So I wanted to meet people. London wasn't being very kind to me, and also by nature I am very shy. It was quite hard for me to go out and meet people. I did make friends, but not in terms of quality, but in terms of quantity. I was going to all these like meetups and events to meet new people, but it was just superficial connections rather than anything that is meaningful. I don't think about in terms of meaningfulness anymore. It's more to do with the use of energy effectively these days. Being quite shy meant that I had to stretch myself to get out there a bit, and that obviously meant making the wrong type of friends, because these people were either overly talkative, like they always wanted to talk. I wanted the reciprocation. Introverts cannot actually meet another introverts. It's a paradox, because you have to stretch yourself, which introverts don't do. I don't know if I'm an introvert. It depends on my mood, I think. Sometimes I want to be around people, sometimes I don't. And there was this lack of honesty in these relationships. Having that many friends and still feeling lonely was also getting to me. So I decided to do a sort of social decluttering. I figured out that the 80% of my unhappiness that comes from my friends are coming from certain group of people, so I decided to cut them out. And also in the romantic department, I wasn't having any sort of luck there as well either. I wanted to meet women specifically. I didn't want to actually, I was deluding myself thinking that I wanted to make friends, but really no, I just wanted to meet women. But I will say this, that the difficulty with me, I always thought, and also others told me that it's because I put women on a pedestal at that time, but I don't think it was that. It was more to do with me comparing myself to other men, and also questioning my capacity or worthiness to be in a relationship, because I didn't actually see. I still don't. Well, why? It's not in a sad kind of way, but more of why you take the emotions out of it. Why should I provide anything for anyone? That's the thing. That's my thinking. Anyway, I was afraid of people at some level. I still am. Maybe because my parents were kind of strict and they always shielded me from the outside badness, if you will. And they wanted me to study very well. I don't know what they were thinking. It paid out in the end, but it also left a psychological mark. Getting smacked for small mistake also meant that somehow I internalized that and started thinking that everyone will treat me the same. So I was kind of like hyper vigilant around people, so which contributed to my social anxiety, I think. Because I was comparing myself to other men, I thought it was the only reason I would connect with other men was to understand them, to see that they are not very different from me. The main task for me was to talk to a lot of people, and especially women. So I thought that I would travel around the world and meet people from different places. That was a primary reason that why I started traveling. My friend was there in Thailand. He was having a good time. I booked a one-way ticket to Thailand. It was very sudden. I don't know what prompted me to do that. It was like me sitting here one day, and then I looked at kiwi.com, and then it was some other site back then. A couple of days later I was already in Thailand. It was an expensive flight, I remember, but I just took it and left. and after the amount of rejections that I was getting actually got to me. So I wanted to manage the hurt. I went to a sort of like this ashram place where I could actually learn meditations to actually, you know, spiritually bypass the pain. So I did. It was a good time actually. Something changed for a while at least, and I started. I met some women there, and because it was this hippie sort of community, so everyone was kind of loose. There were not many inhibitions inside the community. Anyway, after that I returned to the UK. This ashram living, if I think back on it, it is kind of cringe when I think about it now. It's hilarious actually, and it's a sense of boredom, hurt and desperation that led me to explore these things. Yeah, the ignorance got to me. In this world, they say things like, you're in the matrix, you're worrying too much, let me show you how it is done, what life is. So you kind of like, out of this boredom and desperation, you kind of start to believe these things. Every spiritual guru has a version of this. It didn't click at this point when I was deep in it. They say there, you don't know what is best for you. It's why you are here. You're basically voluntarily exposing yourself to this manipulation. So I returned to the UK, and I was still in the self-help world. I heard vulnerability is the new trend. So I wanted to practice vulnerability, which is kind of stupid. If you think about it, the quest was really to, out of this pain, to become morally superior to others. It's really, they hide the sense of being nothing, not amounting to anything. That, you know, that little voice in your head, maybe your parents told you, or my dad used to tell me that I will amount to nothing, which I proved him wrong, in my head anyway. But you realize that you're more like your parents than you would like to admit at some point. And because I didn't like this feeling of like, out of the fear of being nothing, I started, and also being in the self-help development community, I started doing all kind of bullshit like journaling and practicing meditation and doing all the personal development practices, spiritual practices. But anyway, something good came out of it. The journey to Thailand and back, I hadn't actually traveled so much at this point in time. I realized that I actually like the act of travel, not so much visiting places and indulging in culture or anything like that, but rather than the movement that it provides, going to the airport, or the sense of movement, the sense of progress. It is false, but it still keeps me moving. It was also at this point that I picked up a copy of the 4-Hour Workweek. I also had some money in savings, so I actually decided to follow through what the advice in the book. So I did some preparation. I put my because I had left my apartment so abruptly. I was still paying my rent for like 7 months, which is like, I don't know, £2,000 a month, which is like £14,000 wasted. But when I came back, I decided to put all my stuff in storage, rented out a mailbox, left that apartment, didn't renew the lease, got a virtual address, and went paperless, made sure that there was a phone number for others to contact me. I got an online Skype number. So in 2014, 2015-ish, 14 I think. During this preparation time, when I was deciding to travel, just before a month or two, I actually found this kind of like a sex positive group in London. When I was researching for vulnerability, the perfect combination of things that I was looking for, it had like sex positive people, and they had seminars and like workshops that will teach you about like relationships, sex, a little bit of spirituality here and there. It sounded all promising. So in the spirit of deceiving oneself in the self-improvement world and gaining upper hand at whoever is coming at me with their unenlightened self, I decided to hang out with that bunch of people, and they have branches all around the world. So I was really traveling to go to these branches and take more self-help development seminars, workshops, meet new women, and doing all kind of stuff. I spent a lot of money that time, about from the period of 2014 to 2018, I think, just in seminars and stuff. I spent over £100,000, which is a lot. I was kind of indulging in all these activities with great pleasure, going after pleasure, sort of like hedonistic lifestyle. But that all came crashing down after a while. It only lasted for a while. It was more like I would occasionally go back to London to work for 2 or 3 months just to make enough money to pay for the next course. That, to me, that actually sounds like an addict when I think about it. But I think that's the cycle that we get caught up in. All right, okay, enough about So how did I make money? I tried to implement some of the concepts in Tim Ferriss's book. I did drop shipping, listening to all the Udemy courses and stuff like that. It actually didn't work out. I actually ended up losing some money there. I was selling these houses for cats. People were buying stuff, but I was still losing money on because I was spending. I'm not very good at calculating stuff, I think, or too lazy to do that. I ended up losing a bit of money there. Also, I worked a little bit on Upwork, the freelancing website, as a programmer. I made somewhere around like $2,000 to $3,000 a month. It was all right. It was not bad either. It was not that difficult to get a job there as a programmer. I quickly realized that if I were to work in London for 1 month, the money that I get in 1 month is equal to 6 months money I get on Upwork. So I could, instead of traveling and working every day and be in places, I could just go back to London and work for like 2 to 3 months and do the whole thing again. So that is a cycle that I am caught up in right now, which is not bad actually. It is still a chore to go back to London and make money. But anyway, at the end of 2018, I went back to London from the period of 2018 to 2020. Worked about like 9 months in that period, from 2018 November to 2020 March, when the pandemic hit. I was there in my Birmingham apartment in lockdown. I was looking at I had in my mind that to start a YouTube channel. I was watching this YouTuber, Gabriel Traveler. In my mind, my hesitation to start a YouTube channel was not knowing how to film or edit, which can be learned, but I thought it was kind of a lot of work. But when I started watching Gabriel Traveler, it was him just walking around with a GoPro and pointing at things and explaining it. Given that he explains it very well, I figured that it wasn't very difficult. So that's the reason really this came to be a travel channel. I actually wanted to put other content in here as well, but I just got stuck with the easy part. The problem with the travel channel is though that it is a lot of work in the sense that it's time consuming, and also at the same time wanted to expose myself to around people, because going out and pointing at things, talking in front of a camera sounded like a challenge. Problem with travel channels is that I'm not getting a lot of views here. I have observed that it is easier for women to do this, and also people with having beautiful women, put them on the thumbnail and then you get a lot of views. It was an easy thing to do because I was already traveling. I regretted that I hadn't documented anything at this point. I'm leading this lifestyle anyway, so all I have to do is document what I'm doing. What did I learn in this period in terms of like loneliness? Did it help, the travel and all these experiences? I think as long as you have certain kind of ambitions and you go after it, the loneliness persists. It's a goal-oriented mindset. And also people say things like I'm alone, I'm not lonely. I think it's just wordplay. I think most of us are lonely anyway, and alone people actually don't compare themselves in terms of like, they don't separate them, so categorize themselves into introverts, extroverts, lonely, alone. It's all mind tricks, I think. I've heard someone say that a healthy person doesn't know he's healthy. It's only the sick that knows he's sick. In relationships, I'm not dating anyone. I haven't since 2018, since I left the group. I think it's a lot of work, even with normal people. I think it's a lot of work to ultimately live in a sort of like feel-good fantasy. Because of that expectations, it turns out to be very, very difficult to be in a relationship. So we don't really listen to each other in relationships, as I have observed. We normally listen to each other waiting for our turn in order to be reciprocated, and when we don't get that, we get angry. Honesty isn't good if you are in a relationship. The other person want you to say things that they want to hear, not necessarily the truth. Most relationships, very rare that you get to be around people who has some intelligence in that department, rather than thinking about all this feel-good nonsense. Most relationships start out as the feel-good nonsense, but it kind of bores you. Have you observed that after the initial phase, it kind of bores you staying at that superficial level, and then it's the first kind of rush that got you into the relationship. But then when it gets boring, you rely on the other person to make you excited, and then you want to know a little bit more about the person. People try to be honest at that point, but in reality that honesty repulses us, because that doesn't play to the fantasy that we had when we got into the relationship. But I also think jealousy and possessiveness it's not relationship, it's not love. We don't actually know what love is, so we create an abstract concept of what love is and go after it. I think it's the very act of going after love that creates a sense of wanting to be loved. Time won't fix anything. There is nothing to improve. You cannot get rid of fear or anxiety or any other negative emotions that you are thinking about in 5 years or in 5 minutes or 5 seconds, because all that is doing is like sustaining that fear or anxiety for that 5 years or 5 minutes or 5 months that you're trying to get rid of fear. It's just strengthening that part of you. When you say I want to overcome my fear, you're acting out of fear. It's the fear talking. It's the fear saying that I want to get rid of fear. Travel wise, as I said, I like the act of traveling, not being in one place. So far I think I have visited about not much. It's about 30 plus countries. In terms of life goals, goal setting will only help you repeat what you have already known, because when you set the goals, you're thinking in terms of what you already know and what you think will get to your goal. There needs to be some flexibility for as you go along, you gain more information and your goals may change, and you may think that the past goals are not anymore relevant. Sometimes we cling to the original goal. Still, it is a pattern of knowledge accumulation, whether it is reading a new book, talking to some person new, and then acting out of that knowledge accumulated. It is now something that is different. You're still caught up in that pattern. All we are doing is fight or flight mechanism in most of these cases. Take this case of spontaneity. Being frustrated and bored where you are, you suddenly decided to be spontaneous and experience new things. You start fighting with that feeling of boredom, and then you flee. And work-wise, as I said, I go back to London whenever I need money, and I sometimes work on Upwork. I don't usually do it because it pays very less. If I really don't want to go back to London, then I do some work on Upwork. Right now, my main focus is on scaling. There is only so much that I've observed in my profession, so much that I can make, because essentially I'm trading my time for money. So I just want to get out of that correlation between time, and a direct correlation between time and money. I'm not really sure that I'm going to be posting only travel content. As I said, it was the only easiest thing to do. And I also have other interests, and also travel can get boring after a while. 10 months of traveling so far, I'm kind of tired. I just want to be in one place, proceed with some other interests. So I'm thinking about some tech content, some travel content, some of this personal chit chat. So this is where I'm at. Hopefully you've learned something from me sharing all this, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.